Hi, this is Emmy Perry, and this is my final story, the recorded version. So, the first thing to know about me is that I was very shy growing up, remarkably shy. Like, hated speaking out loud, hated speaking to anyone really. I had, one friend, not too social, um, and you know, this shocks people when I tell them that, because I'd say at this point in my life, I really love talking and I'm very social and I really enjoy um, just having conversations with people, which is something I just really so struggled with for actually most of my life. Um, and, this was such a defining part of my personality for so long that I was very shy and quiet. And it really affected school because so much of school is being social and a lot of school projects involve public speaking. So, because of this, I eventually, when I reached a certain point in high school, was due to my anxiety about it and just the general lack of ability to manage it, uh, got a special 504 plan that allowed me to not have to do public speaking. Or present things. Teachers weren't even allowed to cold call me in class. It was only if I raised my hand of my own volition could they call on me. Um, I feel like this is an important part of the story because it shows how serious it was, like how seriously I did not want to speak, but it also kind of demonstrates like what can kind of happen where it was a very kind thing to do for me and it helped me a lot at the time, but it really exacerbated the issue and made me even more quiet and kind of withdrawn. And so I think it was even more of a struggle to eventually break out of that because it had been, reinforced to me by the school and by my parents, or, almost like maybe I needed the push, but I wasn't ready. So it was, you know, something that I just kind of laugh to think about now because I've once I reached college, um, I was so worried about it, and then of course a lot of things changed for me. So um, the kind of evolution of that problem, specifically as it relates to school, is I attended school in 2020 when COVID-19 was very much an issue in the world, and I had to do online classes for all of my classes. This helped because online class participation, as I think all of us know, is very dicey. Zoom, it was very hard to like raise your hand, so to speak, with that button, and it was really hard unless you were in discussion groups. And of course, when you're in discussion groups, it's a smaller group of people, so it wasn't as scary for me to talk in a discussion group. It felt very private to be sent into that virtual private room and talk in a more peer-to-peer setting. So, throughout my entire freshman year, I basically did not have to even confront the idea of public speaking. Um, and, after that year, I ended up taking a gap year. Um, and I took a gap year for many reasons, but partially it was because at the end of my freshman year, I suffered an assault and reported it, and through talks with my school and my parents, we decided it was best for me to take a gap year, but still try to attend an academic institution just to keep me ready for school for when I felt ready to return. And we searched for a lot of places that I could go, community college or anything like that. But it ended up that I had a friend who attended a joint mental health and academic program called NITEO. And in this was through BU. So 3 times a week, I would go into um, Boston, which was also kind of pushing me out of my comfort zone. I had to navigate the streets of Brookline and Boston by myself, um, and I went and attended this program. Now, the first day of this program, I I knew that it was going to be a challenge for me, um, because it was set up where it was a circular table, and we all sat around it, and we all had to look at each other. And the instructor, she was very fond of that technique where she would say something and it, pose something to the class. And just like me, a lot of these people did not like speaking or public speaking or talking in class. And she would just wait. She would just stare at us. And it was really a battle of wills, and she never lost the battle. Um, and I noticed on my first day because we were trying to share, like, oh, what's your name? Why are you here? And it was just hard to get stuff out of us. And, no one wanted to go first. And I found myself staring at this instructor, kind of like really looking her right in the eyes, being like, can we, can you ask a different question? Can you pick someone? And she smirked at me and was kind of like, and I just, we sat there for like kind of a long time. It was like a minute of silence. It got to be very pronounced. And finally, I just felt this thing take over me, this like annoyance. I was like, I just need to fix this. And so I started talking. And as I was talking, I kind of word vomited. It was not very polished. But I kind of told the reason I was there. And, that was very vulnerable. It was kind of one of the first times I had to speak about the assault. And on top of that, it was in a public setting with people I don't know. So I remember my hands were kind of shaking and I had like kind of tears in my eyes, but I was able to get through that first conversation and really explain myself and why I was there. And I looked back at the instructor in the end, and she, was kind of still smirking at me, but she clearly had gotten what she wanted, which was for someone to be vulnerable and for someone to start a conversation, which, as I continued the program, I found was so, so integral to like the healing process and also to graduate the program. So, in a shocking twist, I continued to be the first person to start speaking in any conversation in all the classes. It got to the point where instead of just waiting, the instructors would just say, and we'll start with Emmy. And I ended up organizing a group lunch with my classmates, and it was always that I would just choose a place and then invite people to go, which was very unlike me. But through these conversations and through, saying hard things, you become very tightly bonded with people. And it can be very kind of special to know these things about people, and then, becomes easier to try and extend friendship because you feel a connection, even if maybe you wouldn't be friends with that person normally, or if you are normally shy. I don't know. It changed a lot of how I was able to communicate with people, and it changed a lot for me, like to this day, about when I'm able to kind of have a vulnerable conversation with people that I don't normally know. I can still kind of use that skill, and it's very easy for me to make friends now. So it was basically to kind of steal from the book that we've been studying all semester. It was kind of, the normal new normal, and it happened very rapidly for me. And it was just such a big transformation. And I think the part that really emphasized to me how much I had grown through this process was at the end of the course, we had to basically say something nice about every single, say a piece of, something you're grateful for about each student, each peer, and then, you know, do a final presentation. And when we did the final presentations, it was very awesome because so many people who were like me like talked for like 10 full minutes, like I'm doing now. And at the end of the class, I am not exaggerating. Every single person said that they were thankful that I talked the most, or that I started conversations, or that I took them out to lunch. And it was just a very emotional moment for me because I had kind of felt the change happening, but to have people tell you their perception of you can sometimes be really like life changing for how you perceive yourself. And I think I had still been perceiving myself as this like very shy, quiet person who was kind of antisocial. And to have 15 other people who had kind of known me pretty well this over the course of these months say that they each found that I was very social and open and vulnerable, really changed a lot for me. And I think ever since that course, I just have grown more and more social and more comfortable with talking, especially about things that are difficult for me to talk about. Um, and so, yeah, that's kind of the story of how I was able to learn to even speak to other people. It happened very late in my life, but I'm glad that it happened nonetheless. Um, yeah, thank you so much.